Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're super excited to have Laura Jones from Uber with us, and we'll be talking about the question that is in everyone's minds, right? Driving innovation during crisis. Now, the pandemic has definitely changed the world upside down for a lot of us, but I'm pretty sure it has also changed for what Uber means to customers and to employees. So we're looking forward to hear from Laura on how did product marketing have an impact and what did it mean for product marketing, because I'm pretty sure you had to go through a lot of changes in speed, light speed, right? So let's dive in. So Laura, maybe let's start off with a quick introduction. I know a lot of our product marketing alliance members know you really well because you've been a panelist and a speaker at our events, but at the same time a quick introduction, and I'll give a brief introduction about myself too, and we get started.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me today. Really, really wonderful to be here. And thanks to everyone who's tuning in. So I'm Laura Jones. I lead our product marketing function at Uber, and that's across our rides business, our eats business, freight, and all of our other bets. And have been in the role for 5.5 years now at Uber, and really excited to share kind of what this year, what 2020 has meant for us as a product marketing team at Uber.
Awesome. And a little bit about myself. So some of you might have attended one of my Masters of Product Marketing sessions. I recently joined Lenovo Data Center Group, and I'm leading the services marketing worldwide team. And super excited to be here, Laura, to kind of kick off this fireside chat with you. I think we're only missing the log of fire, but I don't think we need that today because we have had a lot in California over the past week. So let's get started. So considering the environment that we are in and all the changes that's happening in the world, when your customer needs change, how did your product and offerings need to pivot? What did that look like?
Yeah. So when COVID hit, it was a fundamental shift in obviously kind of consumer behavior and what we all needed to do to keep ourselves and our communities safe. And so, prior to COVID, Uber's bigger business line was rides, and our kind of upstart business line, our growing business line was Eats, and obviously other business lines, including freight, autonomous vehicles, Elevate, et cetera. But rides and Eats, the vast majority of the business. As soon as COVID hit, you can imagine, with quarantine, with shelter in place, all of a sudden the rides business ground to a halt as it needed to. And we as a business took steps as well to make sure that people were aware of the local guidance from authorities, making sure that people were only using Uber rides for essential services. Obviously, because we were an essential service, we were able to stay operational to transport essential workers. But beyond that, our message in the app was really, don't ride unless this is truly an essential trip. So you can imagine between the government restrictions and our own actions to limit movement on the platform to keep everyone safe, rides was very much grinding to a halt. On the flip side, with everyone staying at home, all of a sudden Uber Eats became an incredibly essential service for so many people. And all of a sudden, many people didn't feel safe even going to the grocery store. And so this became a lifeline for people to feed themselves and to feed their families. So for us as a team and as a company, it was all about pivoting incredibly quickly to make sure that we could, change our own kind of resource allocation and change our own focus to support what the customer needs were at that moment. And so we were able to really, I'm really proud of how quickly we were able to make that pivot and to make sure that we had certainly a team still on rides, making sure we were doing all the good work to shut down Pool and to do the other things required for that business, but also just really over investing in Eats so that we could meet the incredibly high demand. And just one, story from that period is with Eats, beyond the consumer demand, there was also a ton of restaurant demand. So many restaurants were struggling to figure out how they could make their businesses viable and continue to operate, given that they weren't allowed to do on-premise dining. And so we had this huge influx of restaurants trying to onboard onto Uber Eats. And we actually, as a company, did kind of a volunteer effort over a number of weekends where, different folks from different functions could sign up to actually help onboard restaurants. And that, I think, was just a great example of the entire company pitching in and saying, this is the right thing to do. And even if we're not, typically restaurant onboarding specialists, we're going to double down and spend our time and energy doing this because it's best for our users, be those restaurants or end consumers.
And that's a beautiful story, right? I think as a customer, both for rides and for Eats, when I've seen that change happen, and I think one of my big ones was I didn't really have to download the Uber Eats app anymore. Within rides, I could go into Uber Eats, and that I think it's transformational because you start seeing how companies are integrating services and products because that's what the customer needs at the end of the day. As much as I'm a rides user, I know that Eats is more important for me today. And I think on behalf of the community and the users, I thank you and the Uber team to make those steps happen for us. So if you look at new opportunities, right, you mentioned there were some volunteer opportunities. Were there new opportunities that started coming up, which you wouldn't have thought of if it wasn't for the situation that we are in today?
Yeah, it's a great question, and definitely a ton of opportunities from a product standpoint. So, we kind of took stock of, what is the new normal of quarantine, if you will. What is the need state of our customer during this time of limited movement, and what do we have in our business toolkit and as a company that we can use to serve these needs. And so zooming out, you realize that actually obviously we have our consumer constituents, but we also have an earner population and an earner customer that depends on us for a living. And so that is both a constituent to serve, but also an asset that we can draw upon to help provide, end consumers with things that they might need. So one service that was born out of COVID that provided more earning opportunities for our drivers and couriers and also helped our end customers was Uber Connect. And this is a new service where you can send essentially a package from your house to someone else across town. So we've been using it a lot for baked goods. So as we know, quarantine baking is a thing. Lots of muffins and granola. And I actually haven't done sourdough, which makes me a bad resident of San Francisco, but I know a lot of people have been. And so, a perfect use case for Connect to say, it's your birthday. I wish I could be there with you, but I know I can't. And so I'm going to send you a cupcake in an Uber. And it's a way of kind of, the reason we called it Uber Connect is because it is a way of connecting people. And so this was just a great example of, I think, ingenuity and innovation, and really drawing on, again, our incredible group of earners and drivers and couriers, who we refer to in collective terms as earners, who were also, wanting to, stay on the road and provide these essential services. So finding more ways that we could help them keep earning and help them, serve the customers in their city. Other businesses that have come out of this or have accelerated through COVID. One on the Eat side is Pickup. And this, I think, is really having its moment right now where in various cities, restaurants, some of them are open for outdoor dining, some of them have on-premise, some of them are still closed. Pickup has been a business that has really started to take off, that again, I think was really born and accelerated through COVID. And again, this is just the ability to, through the Uber Eats app, order ahead and pick something up as you're out and about. I've personally been walking a ton during COVID and love to use this to, pre-order a smoothie and just swing by and grab it on the way home. And so it starts to break this idea of, rides being about transportation or Eats being just about delivery. We start to see with Connect and with pickup, that there are new modalities that can emerge, and really challenge us to keep innovating to meet customers' needs as they evolve.
And this is great because when you think about product marketing and everything that we do, right, it all goes back to that persona and trying to understand what are their needs and how their needs are evolving. And this is beautiful. Like even when you think about prioritizing people over how the company has typically functioned, right? You're making all those trade-offs. You're making the right choices to make sure that whatever is coming out of this is not just for the next period of time, but it's something that's a long life ecosystem that you can build. And I think when you talk about pickup, like I think within Eats, everyone had the functionality of leveraging pickup, but nobody quite did. But now people are like, hey, I'm already like 2 minutes away from there. I can place an order, just go pick it up and not really wait in line. And you're making those choices as an individual. So this is great to hear. When you think about these new needs and new opportunities that were coming, were there needs for, or challenges maybe, or opportunities, right? Where you said, okay, this is COVID is actually posing challenges for how our operating model is today. And did you have to reimagine how you have your operating model today in the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think one challenge that COVID has posed, for us as a global business, is just the extreme variation among our businesses around the world, and the nonlinearity of recovery has really exacerbated this. So, before, as a product marketing team, we could say, okay, we're going to launch this thing, and here's the order in which we're going to launch it, and we're going to kind of push all these assets out centrally, and it was a bit easier to do things kind of from a central global team and just kind of push outwards to different regions. What we really were forced to innovate on, and I think this will be a long-lasting innovation from an operating model standpoint, is to move to much more of a toolkit-based approach. So to say, the regulations, the recommendations for safety, for example, are different in every country. So rather than pushing one global safety campaign, we built a modular toolkit because, for example, in Australia, masks were not required for a period of time. Whereas they were in the US. You can't actually use the same campaign. You can't just push one email blast to everyone in the world. Instead, we had to build out kind of modular toolkits that corresponded to different product availability, different, again, regulatory landscapes and different recovery phases. And so product marketing has really kind of reshaped the way that we work, again, to be much more modular, flexible, providing resources that can then be deployed locally. And similarly, when we see innovation happening in region where there might be a particular challenge or opportunity that shows up in a market, thinking about how can we take what's been done really successfully in one market and then scale that back out globally. So it's really facilitated, I think, a healthy interchange between the central teams and the regional teams, where we're able to kind of work together to drive innovation.
And that's great. And I think agility is the answer to most of our questions. I'm considering that technology, we are always on our rocket speed, right? And now we have been accelerated by changes. We have been accelerated by uncertainty around us. As a team, did you feel like there were new tactics you had to come up with, or tactics that you had leveraged before, but now it's become more and more prominent that you saw in this transition?
Yeah, I think what we've had to do is just become way more flexible. And, historically, we had mapped always kind of just one-to-one to product. And so each, PM would say, oh, I really need a PMM. And we would kind of hire someone in, and the expectation is that that person would work alongside that cross-functional product group, comprising PM and design, et cetera, kind of ad infinitum, and that would kind of be your job. And I think with COVID, we did have to get more flexible and take things on a much more kind of project driven basis. And it's, I think there were aspects of that that have been really positive, where people have been able to develop new skill sets and have been able to work across lines of business. So I think some of that will stay. I think it does pose sometimes a challenge in terms of those, one of the great things about the old operating model was the depth of cross-functional relationships and the ability to really carry insights from, the product development phase all the way through go to market, launch, and growth. And so, in some cases, that's less of a continuous thread if people are moving around. And so what it has kind of taught me from an operating model standpoint and a team kind of management standpoint is that, there's a studio model where everything is project based. There's like a one-to-one match model. And really probably the sweet spot for us is going to be somewhere in the middle, where when we have really ambitious product development efforts, that dedication, that one-to-one match totally makes sense. But that in other cases, we can maybe develop more of a MVP go-to-market support model where we can plug in with a lot of different teams and almost run an incubator, where we can actually kind of plug in and help across a number of different projects without having to be quite as deeply embedded, just knowing that some of these bets, may find long-term product market fit and others may not, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that, one of the things you had mentioned was like empowering the team, right? Giving them the opportunities of stretching themselves, trying to figure out other opportunities where you can step back. I think all those are great things. As you were navigating through the pandemic, right? And as we look into the future, how did you make sure that the public confidence in the brand remained high?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. And this year, I am just so proud of how we have shown up as a brand. I think, Uber has gone through, a lot of evolution in even the 5.5 years that I've been there, and certainly over the 10 years since its founding. And, this year was an opportunity for us to look at kind of the reality of brand perception, which in some cases, people did still feel that Uber prioritized profits over people. And that was something that we know internally not to be true. And we are deeply human-centric, we're user-centric. And so the opportunity I think that was presented by COVID was to really prove that, right? Because here's this moment where, and again, speaking from more of a ride standpoint, we knew and as humans, we all, felt almost kind of a deep pride in staying at home and sheltering in place and saying, let's be part of the fight to stop this pandemic. And as a business, obviously, like people not taking rides, hurts revenue, hurts profitability. But rather than kind of, saying, get in a car, it doesn't matter, pandemic, we actually, or frankly, even saying nothing and just saving those marketing dollars, which we also could have done. Instead, what we did was to say, thank you for not riding. Thank you for staying home. And so we actually ran a TV spot that celebrated the fact that people were staying home and not taking Ubers. And so I think that was an incredibly bold move to really show that we are, in support of doing the right thing, of people, staying put, letting essential workers go about their work, and letting, the delivery people, the couriers, the drivers that are out there doing that really critical work and continue to do so, but thanking folks that didn't need to be on the road, that weren't going to take essential trips for not taking those trips. And similarly, with masks, even before there was formal kind of top-down CDC and WHO guidance, we knew we were going to put in place a mask policy because we knew that it was, we were seeing some early scientific evidence that this was going to be the right thing to do. And again, as a business, you could say, well, telling someone they have to wear a mask introduces friction, and that's not good because it means that some people are, not going to want to ride. But instead, we pushed forward with the mask policy again, even before it was kind of enforced at the state level, and said no mask, no ride. And again, went out with a broad message saying, it's important that we all protect ourselves and protect each other. And what I love about that one is that not only did we make this bold statement, no mask, no rights, we actually kind of um, took masks and through the piece, through the spot we put on air, really instead of kind of treating them as a stigma or a hassle, gee, I've got to find this mask and put it on, really treated it actually as like a badge of being part of the fight, a badge of honor, and really celebrated masks. We had beautiful fun patterns and lively music, and kind of made the point that by wearing a mask, you are protecting the people around you and you're part of the fight. And so seeing our brand take on that tone this year is something I'm just incredibly proud of. And I think, when we think about public confidence in the brand, as you prompted, I think that the actions we've taken this year really show that, we are prioritizing people over profit, and we're truly embodying our cultural value of doing the right thing.
Right. And I think what you said holds true for most organizations today, but then especially for consumer facing companies, the impact has been tremendous, right? Like you have to make those choices to protect people always, and that I think becomes bigger and bigger. But when you think about, and you iterated this a little bit in this question that we just talked about, where you were thinking about the brand and how messaging got impacted, right? No masks, no rights. Were there efforts or even key learnings which you wouldn't have seen otherwise, that you realize that this needs to be a core part of the messaging value when you think about our value proposition or how we even position ourselves in the market? Were there some key learnings in that exercise when you started looking at the new changes and new shifts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly having safety front and center is something that was necessitated by COVID and by the pandemic, but it's something that I think is really important even beyond COVID. And there, anytime you're getting in an Uber, it's important that we're reassuring you of the different safety measures that we're taking, be that our driver screening process, be that our COVID safety measures. So I think that certainly the prominence of safety messaging is something that I think is something that I think will stay and will continue to be a priority. And interestingly, kind of even was a priority pre-COVID with the release of our safety report last year. It's something that we're taking incredibly seriously, and I think COVID has only accelerated. So that is something that I think will be kind of a lasting impact on our messaging. The other place where I think messaging has really evolved and where we've seen an incredible change in behavior is around how we recognize our earners. So in the beginning, you were talking about that you appreciate the changes we made. The thing that for me, I always try to come back to is recognizing that, like, well, I work at Uber, the people that are actually providing the service on the platform, we are just a tech company. We're just providing, matching software to match you with the driver. The people that are actually doing the work on your behalf are our drivers and our couriers that work on our platform. And so, one thing that we wanted to do during COVID is to recognize the essential nature of the work, because part of the reason Uber was not shut down and actually, asked and empowered to keep operating is because we were identified as an essential service. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is that, you walk around and you see so much gratitude being offered to essential workers, rightly so. And we felt like the drivers and couriers are part of this essential workforce as well. And how can we help them feel that sense of gratitude as well? That mail carriers and road workers and other essential workers are also feeling. We really wanted them to be included in that because, again, there would be nights my family wouldn't eat dinner if it weren't for Uber Eats. So mm-hmm. it really is work that should be celebrated. And so this is a simple one, but we changed the copy in our tipping screen to essentially say, thank your driver for the essential service that they're providing. And just small touch points like that can have such a huge impact in framing the way that customers or riders are thinking about, or eaters are thinking about, who is providing them the service, and really recognizing the risk and effort that our drivers and couriers are putting forth to get them to their doctor's appointment or to deliver dinner for them. And so those kinds of touch points and that sense of recognition and gratitude is something, again, that, I think will be a lasting impact of some of the learnings of COVID. And also that we see changing behavior, and we see it increasing, engagement and tipping. And we've done a ton to try to, again, reinforce that gratitude and that tipping, including now the ability for drivers and couriers to thank you when you give a tip. And so I really see it as a virtuous cycle of infusing a bit more gratitude into the service itself, and making that kind of a hallmark of the experience is just recognizing the folks that are doing that hard work to get you where you need to go or what you need to eat.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's beautiful, because that if there's something in this world that's holding all of us together, is gratitude and hope, and knowing that there are people out there that are willing to take that risk and help you, right? When you start thinking about operations like these, you mentioned developing like self-pacing toolkits and things along those lines for your regions to make sure they are having that same impact just as much as you are having in the US. So were there some challenges or rewards as you kind of saw that evolution happen through the progression as we went through the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think that with this one, we're not a U.S. team; we're a global central team, and so there's a U.S. regional team. There's EMEA, APAC, LATAM, and so the way that we have organized ourselves to make sure that when we are producing these central toolkits, that they're not just reflective of a U.S. Perspective, is to form cross-regional working teams against each of our top priorities, and we call these charter programs. And so each year we establish, and this year we did it twice because of COVID. We did it once in January and did it again in March. But we established these charter programs, and then we have a representative from each region as well as a product marketer meeting on a regular basis. And as we're producing these toolkits, making sure that, again, it's not just this kind of, we'll do it at HQ or in our own homes, the virtual HQ, and ship it out and hope it's relevant. It's been a very collaborative process where the regions are part of the kind of surfacing of needs. They're part of the scoping, they're part of the briefing, and part of the creative development, so that the output of the toolkits is something that they have participated in creating, and making sure that they're globally relevant, and again, built in a modular way, so that if the circumstances on the ground are different in Latin America than they are in Europe, we can still get kind of that 80-20 leverage out of the creative asset, and have that last degree of localization done kind of at the end, while still getting the kind of economy of scale of being able to produce core assets of a much higher quality than we might if they were being produced 70 times over in each country around the world.
And I think this shows the power of innovation. It shows the power of bringing teams together. It's empowerment. There's everything that's coming together. So as we kind of think about everything that Uber is doing and your team has been doing to make sure that we are on top of it, right? That we got this. We are going to make sure that our consumers, our riders, earners, they're all safe, and we are doing the right thing. But sometimes when you look at these innovations, and this will be the last question and we can wrap up, when you think about innovation, most of these successful innovations are taking risks. And when you look at where we are in our economy today, sometimes there's very little room for shifting if these risks don't go to plan. So as product marketers, how do you continue to reap rewards of risk taking, also making sure that you are fostering that within your teams and knowing that, hey, this is something that we want us to do irrespective of what environment we are in. And this is probably the test of times, right? We want to make sure we're helping each other. But how do you kind of balance that? And what are your guidance for teams, product marketers and product marketing leaders that are looking for this is one scenario that I think we will all remember in our lifetime, but we don't know what else is coming, right? I think we have seen more in this year, 2020. It's a year that we're all going to remember. How do you kind of see that shift, and what would your guidance and advice be to the broader Product Marketing Alliance community?
Yeah, the question around kind of innovation and how do we continue to be innovative in the face of so many challenges is a really poignant one. I think that this comes down to like the nature of innovation itself and why are we innovating? Why are we taking these risks? What's the point? And so I think that pursuing innovation for innovation's sake, pursuing it for the sake of novelty or to add another feature to an app isn't the reason to innovate. The reason to innovate is when there's an unmet need. And so as product marketers, and I personally ascribe to design thinking as kind of the core philosophy that guides how I approach the craft, which again kind of goes back to that question of how can we be human centric in our approach to product development or in our approach to crafting go-to-market strategies or campaigns. And I think if you start with the user need and you look around, actually that's where crisis can really spur innovation, because inherently in a time of so much change and so many deep societal challenges, new unmet needs are arising constantly. And so that's where, if you think back to kind of where we started talking about some of the new services that Uber has developed, or even some of these new approaches from a marketing standpoint, they respond to a change in circumstance that creates a new tension that hadn't existed before, a new problem that needs to be solved. And that's where we can come in with the creativity and the innovation and apply that in service of the user's need. And so whether that need is, I just baked these muffins and I need to send them, to you for your birthday, or whether that need is, gee, do I feel comfortable, going out in a mask at a time when this is, a polarized discussion, helping to address those tensions, be they kind of functional needs or emotional needs. I think this is where product marketing has such a great role to play. And I would just encourage everyone to, instead of letting all the change and challenge cause you to become risk averse, instead use it as a way to see with new eyes and look around and look for what has changed. What are the ways in which people are developing, new needs or confronting shifts in behavior that might not yet be well served, and how can I play a role in getting my company to address those needs and to continue to push for innovation in service of kind of making this new reality a better one for our customers.
That's fantastic. And I think that's a great way to close off our session today. So thank you, Laura, for taking the time. I think every question had a lot of good nuggets and a lot of good advice for companies and product marketing teams to be thinking about as we look into the future that we don't know, as we go into the unknown. What does change mean, and how we can actually take risks and take innovation in a positive light, not for the sake of innovation, but actually for actually meeting an unmet need. And I think that's just fantastic. So thank you so much, Laura. Thank you to everyone listening today from the PMA community. If you have any follow-up questions, Laura and I here to answer them, but otherwise have a great, wonderful day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the great conversation. Thank you to everyone who listened, and wishing everyone a happy and healthy rest of this pandemic year.
Thank you. And likewise, everyone, stay safe and healthy. And we are all here to make sure everyone's taken care of. So have a great day. Bye-bye.